Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Oneness Junkie podcast, hosted by me, Lydia Smith, a self-proclaimed Oneness Junkie. Oneness Junkie is a place to be inspired, encouraged, and supported. Learn from the individuals who are working to make the world a better place. Let's meet today's guest. Hi, everybody. It's Lydia. And I know that every time I start a podcast episode, I always tell y'all that I have a special guest. Well, this guest is extra, extra special. I'm sitting here with Marta. Hi, Marta.
Hi, Lydia. Thank you for having me on your podcast. It's a joy to be with you and your audience.
Oh, thank you. I'm so glad that, you're ready. You're ready for me to highlight you and tell the world all the good things you've been up to. So thank you for being with me here today.
Thank you.
So I like to start off by telling everybody kind of if I know or if I don't know my guest. And actually, we were just discussing when exactly I actually met Marta. And it was around 2007, I believe, or between 2006 and 2007. She was working at the spiritual center that I came on as a contract worker to help with establishing their web online presence and email marketing capabilities. And Marta was working in events, hosting events and all the wonderful speakers that you got to bring on. That was a fun job, wasn't it?
It was a fun, creative and very enrichment area of my life.
Yeah. So we worked together like in a office environment for 7 years because I call myself retired from Unity in 2005. Oh, wait, you retired before that. You retired in like 2014, right?
2013.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess 5 years, I guess, from 7 to 5 or 6 years.
Audience will say retire, but left the staff.
I know I like to call that retirement because it was a fun time. And anyway, it was great. And we got to know each other. And there's more special things I get to reveal about Marta, but I will reveal those later in the episode. So Marta, why don't you take a second? I like for my audience to get to know who they're listening to in this conversation. So this is your opportunity to kind of give a little bit of your background, where you came from, like what made you who you are today. So bring us up from the past to the present.
Okay, in a nutshell, I was born in Colombia, in the capital, Bogota. I come from a big family, big traditional family. I have 3 siblings. We are 4 sisters, and I went to Catholic school there, and I grew up very traditional with my family. Of course, although my family, it's not Catholic, they're evangelicals.
Mm-hmm.
They want to get into religion. And then I went to university there for about a year and a half there. But I always, when I graduated from high school, I was going through the university. Over there, you don't go to college. You just jump to what is called here will be university level, like undergraduate. I always wanted to leave the tribe. In a way, had that mindset. I want to go get away from the tribe, nothing wrong there, but just start making it on my own and be independent. I was in my early 20s, and when you're in your 20s, you think you know everything that you need. You don't. That's sometimes the most dangerous age because you don't realize what you don't know. So bottom line, I got the support from my parents, and I came to North Miami, and I went to FIU first. I lived in the campus in the dorm, and I had a really good time. I was going to ESL there for a while.
You mean you didn't even speak English before you got here?
No, you take English there in your high school. Actually, when you go into school, you do take some English as a second language, but it's nothing until you get immersed in the language. And
in
I know
the country,
you know
in the
exactly
culture.
what that means. And when I went to the ESL and FIU, actually, I think it was like intermediate level somehow, but still you have a lot of grammar. But then you need to start talking, and then you have the different accents from people, etc. But it was a fun time. But yes, I went for a period. It was all the academic English in the school. At that time, it was fun. I lived at the dorms. I met a lot of Europeans and Italians, and it was fun. And then I went to school there also to FIU as a business. I got a business administration degree. A lot of things then changed. Love Miami, the environment, but I also felt like it wasn't a fit for me. So don't ask me why, those things, I ended up coming to Houston. And since then, which it was like actually late 90s, could you believe? Actually, I've been here in the US more than now my years in Colombia.
Oh, wow. So how many years is that? That's like 31 years.
I haven't counted the years. Sometimes I'm with the math and I don't necessarily see myself.
What year
with
did
the
you come
years.
to America?
But it was like 95.
So okay, so that's not 31. No, that's more like 25.
But 95 or 94, yes. And I came in Houston early in the 2000s anyway. So just think about we're 2022. So it's this is the longest I've been in a city, Houston, and I feel now that I'm a little bit from everywhere. I don't see when people always tell you, where are you from? I said I was born there, not necessarily don't want to define myself in a box. And this is just my mindset, like, oh, I am from this place, because I feel more like we are at oneness.
You're a universal human
of international. And even my family is there. I have a sister here. She lives in DC and she's been here for many years. But two of my sisters are there, my mom, and my mom comes and visit. Of course, not in the last 2 years. But I feel, I don't feel it's my culture there in many ways. And I'm proud of who I am. And there are many things that maybe the music and the way of being with family, yes, that's very Latin, but I didn't even have a work life there, if you think about that. So all my work life was here in the US.
Yeah, so let's bring you through to your work life, just in general. Like, you worked in medical, you've worked
I worked
events.
in medical, and that's before I end up in the spiritual center when we met. It was at oncology. I did a lot of work on oncology, was supporting the creation of a new department, what is known as CAM, that's complementary alternative medicine, that MD Anderson, for example, here, they have it, and all of the big cancer centers. So I was doing a lot of research with starting from zero, from scratch, like the mission and the vision, and getting the protocols of what things we could do and what things we could not do. So it was a lot of research and admin, but it was complementing. It was not alternative, it's complementing both of the medicines. Prior to that, also, I managed an acupuncture and TCM clinic, traditional Chinese medicine clinic, for many years.
So basically, you're kind of a holistic type person, like you lead to the natural before the Western
I was always in healthcare, and when I ended up working for the spiritual center as an events director was my title. My only experience with events, I remember saying on the interview, it was in the medical field, which you do a lot of events with pharmaceuticals at the oncology clinic and grand openings and doctors and seminars. Yes, it's also a lot of events, but it was more in the medical field.
Okay.
So
So let's get to what you're doing today. So you're basically working. The reason I have you on the podcast is because you're helping a lot of people have positive relations with their pets. And primarily you focus on dogs because that's your expertise. But
yes.
tell me, I asked you, how many dogs have you had in your lifetime that you've cared for and worked with?
Yes, and I even made a list, which I have it here. 17 dogs
That were you're part of your
that were
that you cared for
that
within
have
your
been
family.
and actually I counted Clarita, which is still with me, that have been on our part of my life. 17 dogs, without counting the my friends' dogs and the granddaughters and the nieces and nephews that they call me. So 17 dogs. I grew up. One thing I didn't get to share: my mom, back in the days when I was growing up, she was very involved with animal rescue and a nonprofit, which she was very pioneer of my mom, because I was very new, even in Latin America, a new concept of nonprofits. So she was volunteering there and she was helping rescuing. And my mom, right now, she has 4 dogs, and it's a lot for her. Of course, my nephew and my sister's help, but she is like really truly a house without a dog is not a home. So it helps her a lot with companionship, even exercise, a lot of things. So probably I'll get to be like my mom, that even at her age she has 4 rescues. So I grew up with that, and I've always been drawn to animals and dogs. Again, growing up in Colombia when I was a little girl, I do remember saying and thinking, oh, when I grow up, the usual, I want to have an animal shelter, because when you go to the small towns, especially in the small towns, you see a lot of stray dogs. And that was always very touching for me. So I always was thinking, oh, I want to have an animal shelter when I get, to have the possibilities. But then fast forwarding to the US and recent history, when I was working events, I've always liked to study and challenge myself and learn new things. At that time, I thought about going back to school and actually going for an MBA. I remember to really look into that. But at the same time, one of those seminars and courses that we took at the spiritual place, it was like, what do you see yourself doing in 5 years? It was Mary Morrissey, if I may say her name. So with her program, the dogs kept coming to me that like, that's my call, that's what I want to do. So it was back in around 2011 that I started doing T-Touch, which is a holistic approach of dog training. I went there, actually 6 levels of training, and you had to travel and you have to do a lot of classes. And then since then I've been on it, just taking certifications and learning. And I created the positive relations, think like an animal paw, PAWSITIV, positive relations, which is a way of enhancing the relationship that we have with man's best friend, with the dog. And we can talk more about what a positive relation is. But that's when I started that. And it was been volunteering also for all those years at the SPCA, working with friends that do rescue on their own, trying to be active, going to a lot of those animal cruelty education meetings that the city has, and the Texas legislation and things for laws for animal cruelty. I've been very involved with that.
So you're basically saying you're an advocate for those who don't have a voice, which are the dogs.
Yes, the dogs and the cats too. But I have had, out of those 17, actually only 3 cats in my life. mostly it's dogs that I'm with. So that's
Yeah. And you were telling me earlier that the what was the statistic you were telling me about households? You were
well, here
saying,
in the US,
yeah.
up to now, to 2022, the statistics are that 70% of households, if we think about that, is a lot. I believe it's about 70 million, which is a
Wow.
lot. 70% of households in the US have a pet. Mostly are dogs. In numbers, they're cats because people
I
have
mean in
more cats
quantity,
in
like
quantity
per household,
per
there's more
household.
quantity.
But yes, but in households, it's dogs. In quantities, cats
Yeah, the like
have.
majority of
Yes,
households have dogs.
they have. And then, as we know, the animal industry, as far as statistics, we were talking earlier about that, it's an industry that keeps growing and growing, even regardless of times that we have gone into recession. The animal industry has been very stable and even growing. Not only the millennials are having pets as their children per se, but if we see, I mean, and we all see that we just go to the stores, and before it was just the pet stores. Now we go to any of the stores and they have a specific area, an aisle just for pet supplies, entertainment, nutrition, you name it.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because the baby boomers are living longer and at home. And so now they have the time. They're not working anymore. And they're like, hey, I'm at home a lot more. Let me get a dog. And you're saying the millennials are getting pets. So those two big demographics are now acquiring pets. But let's let that be a segue into some of the benefits of having a pet. I know that I was talking earlier with you, and I was telling you about this. American Heart Association has did a study in 2013, and just one of the points that they were making is that people who have had a cardiac event have been better chance of surviving a cardiac event at home after hospitalization if they owned a dog. So
Yes, that's
we've
in statistics and based on studies that indeed that we know that we as animal lovers know that nothing compares to the joy of coming home to an unconditional love companion. However, those studies have shown that having a pet is more than just a companion that gives you unconditional love. It really affects your stress level, decreases your stress level, your anxiety. And as such, again, studies have proven that if you have hypertension, it gets regulated with having a pet. Also cognitive, this is a function, cognitive function in the elderly stays well and stable if you have a pet. Also, exercise, of course, your lifestyle, your exercise too.
more active.
You are more active because you have a dog and you know you have to walk your dog. Also, we mentioned a stress level, socializing, blood level, blood hypertension, but also cholesterol has been shown that also is reduced with having a pet in your house.
Even triglycerides are low.
Yes, yes.
Isn't that funny?
And we all know that. Just you know, this quote that said, until you love an animal, a part of you is awakened. There's a very special bond that you get to have with your animals, with your pets, different than with humans too. That, of course, it's I'm not comparing, it's very powerful, but with your animal, they're saying, and I know this is the right space to say that at metaphysical, energetic level, that is a soul merge between your pet and you, because you get to be and understand one another. So there's a soul merging. And when the animal leaves you, that's why you feel so broken when they leave, because it's a soul fragmentation. And this is a lot of authors talk about that. And I know that also at the energetic level, pets, they raise the vibration of the planet because they bring us to the present moment, to that space of unconditional love and joy. They don't get to judge, how you are, or, complain or anything. It's just live in the present moment and just give you that joy.
Yes. Okay. That's a great segue, because I told you I wanted to tell my story about when it was time to decide if I was ready to settle down and actually get a dog, because I take it very seriously. My responsibility as a pet owner, that I needed to be ready, because I was young and single and was, like going out every night. I wasn't going to stay home with my pet. So I knew I wasn't ready for a pet. So when it was time to consider it, I was friends with you already, and you were like the biggest pet advocate that I knew. And so I basically invited you to lunch that day, and I really wanted your consultation on what are all the things that I needed to be thinking about if I was going to step in to pet ownership. And you and I had a chance to process it. You asked me a lot of questions. I, could check off my boxes that, yes, I'm ready for that. Yes, I'm ready for that. You listed a lot of things, but I was telling you that my biggest anxiety about it was just wondering if I was ready, if I was really ready. And I told, because I, believe we are spiritual beings having a physical experience, I was looking for a sign that it was the right pet. And I had actually, you had told me that most pet owners, their pets find them, right?
Yeah, I told you that.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And I remember being frustrated because I had looked for 4 hours on the internet for a dog. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm the one looking for this dog. He didn't this dog didn't show up for me. I'm searching for it. And it made me mad at myself because I wanted my dog to find me. Right. But I'm going to share in this story. You can look on the internet and your dog, the right dog for you, can still find you. Right.
Exactly.
So here's my story real quick. So you and I were at lunch. You did all that talking to me. And I said, yes. And it was time to leave. And I go, yes, Marta, I need a sign. I need like a serious sign. So I've told this story before. So we were walking out of the restaurant, and it was about 3 days or 4 days before Christmas. And this is in 2007. And right when we were walking out the door, there was a magazine that the front cover of the magazine said, "Bring the puppy home for Christmas." And I was like, look, Marta, look at this magazine. And I took the magazine with me, because it was like a type of magazine you could, like an advertising magazine. Okay. So I was like, in my head, I go, well, that's a nice sign, but that's not a big enough sign. And so then we opened the door to get exit. And there was a little dachshund that was 4 months old that was walking in front of us. Do you remember that?
I do vividly remember that. Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and I go, oh my God, Marta, look, there's a little dachshund. Cause I had found a little dachshund on the internet the night before after looking for 4 hours on all the rescue sites with their photos. Nothing was speaking to me, but then I found this one little baby, 6 weeks old, in Blessing, Texas. And I was like, okay, that's cute. Blessing, Texas. That's a sign. It's just not a big enough sign. I still needed a bigger sign.
And there were 3 signs already. But
so right. So 3 signs. So the third one was the little 4-month-old dachshund. And we stopped and talked to the lady. And I was like, I'm really thinking about getting this dachshund. And here you are walking by. And she goes, you definitely should get it. And so I was like, okay, well, that's a sign. It's just not a big enough sign. So then she and I are running around. I mean, we actually went to Harwin, the shops. Remember? And I bought a little.
You bought a little
outfit.
Yes, I remember that. It was a purple one.
Sure, I was gonna get the dog yet. I was already buying like a leash, and And so then we were driving down the freeway. I think I was taking you back to your car or something. And I asked you, would you go out with me to Blessing, Texas? It was like an hour and a half drive. And you said, yes, I'll go, even though it was Sunday the next day. I think you were not working until after church.
I was actually, I remember brushing.
But after church, I took you back home.
Yes, after.
Yeah, we went early in the morning. So we decided to go in the morning and then like look at the dog. That was my thought process. Okay. So here we are. I'm driving the car. Marta's in the passenger seat. And I called the lady in Blessing, Texas. And I said, by the way, can we come instead of 2? Can we come in the morning, like at 10? And she was like, yeah, that should be fine. And so the next question I asked was, oh, wait, I have to tell the audience, I never said this part of the story. This will make a difference. I had told Marta at lunch, I already had a name. I said, if I'm going to get a dog, I'm going to either name it Joy or Tuscany or Joy Tuscany. And she was like, okay. So she already knew this. She knew that I had already picked out a name. Now I'd bought a leash or whatever and a little outfit, but I didn't even know if I wanted the dog yet. And so this is the big aha moment. So I asked the lady on the phone, I said, by the way, has your son, this little 12-year-old boy is the one that had this litter. His name was Carson. And I said, has Carson named the litter yet? And the dogs, does the dog that I'm interested in, the black one, the female, does it have a name? And the little boy, the mother goes, Carson, Marta couldn't hear this, but this is what happened on the phone. Carson, do you have a name for the female that the lady's interested in? And Carson goes, her name is Joy. And I screamed, and Marta was like, put both hands on the steering wheel. What are you doing? And I was like, oh my God. I said,
the universe was screaming at you like, hey, you need a bigger sign.
This is your dog. And so, I told that lady instantly, I said, oh my God. And she was like, what's wrong? And I go, that's the name I wanted to name my dog. She's like, okay. And so now I'm just coordinating coming to pick it up. I had no question if it had 3 tails and 4 ears and an extra leg. It didn't matter. The dog was meant for me. I didn't have to go pick it out, right? I wasn't going to judge it if it had a defect or whatever. It was meant for me regardless. So I just told the lady, I'm bringing cash. We'll be there at 10 and I'm coming to pick up my dog. I'm definitely taking it. And so anyway, it's the biggest, hugest joy for me. And literally, it's 14 years later, Marta. And God, can you believe? Wow. 14. That means we've been friends for a long time. She's actually down here asleep by my side. And she has been such a blessing and a joy. And I call her Joy, the Dalai Lama, because she's a dachshund. And she brings love. She is so sweet. And she just is an ambassador for love and unconditional love at that. And it's not just to me, a lot of dachshunds have bad attitudes, but she's so loving. And actually, Marta was with me, and this is what I want to share with y'all. Marta is Joy's godmother. And Marta, you've been such a great godmother to Joy. I totally appreciate and have you. I love having you as my godmother, as her godmother in my back pocket, knowing that if I ever have any issues or questions, I can just pick up the phone and you'll have a calming.
I love having Joy as my goddaughter, and I'm totally unconditional at any stage of her life, but even more now. So, and I love her very much. But yeah, that's my experience with, again, all the dogs that I've had and friends and stories like you is, yes, you have to go out. It's not that the dog or the cat is going to come knocking at your door. Although sometimes that's almost happens.
Oh, it can happen.
Yes, right? It can happen. But usually you have to go out. I always encourage people to go out and adopt instead of buying. And that's a different topic. But then the right one will show. I have a friend that recently she went to the SPCA earlier this year. I told her, and she was again, just in her mind, trying to find the perfect match. And she got one female, and it was yeah, maybe yes. But then when she was exiting that area where all the dogs are in the little kennels, there was this little black dog that just jumped on her around her legs. And it was something, she tells me, her his eyes, actually is a male, and it was something that she said, actually she was already doing the paperwork for the other one, and she was like, no, I want this one. And the lady like, what? No, I'm sorry, I do feel the connection with this one. So this is, and at the right time they come back to you, I believe, also in this lifetime. But going back to choosing the right pet and the right questions, like we were that day that you just said when we were talking, am I ready? And many times also with friends or people that I know, at the end, I'm just like discouraging in a way for them to get a dog because maybe you are not ready. And what does it mean that you're ready, or what is the good match? Is like, first of all, what is my lifestyle? Do I have time, or am I just working like, 10, 12 hours, 8 hours around the clock? The dog,
or out of town.
Exactly. Or out of town all the time. That's one of the things, the time. What is my lifestyle also as far as exercise? Do I got to get outdoors? And also the age. I met a couple also, I remember now, at one of these shelters that I volunteer. They were elderly, active, but elderly, and they wanted to get a husky. And then we talked, and I said, that's not the right fit, because huskies, there's some breeds that have been bred to be working dogs, and they're very active. So you need to have, you need to go out and exercise these dogs. And a lot of these big breeds that they're so smart, you need to give them mental challenges. Otherwise, they may become really destructive, especially when they're puppies. So you need to know, yes, every breed has specific traits that you have to be familiar with. Another big thing is, do you have children? I mean, and how little or how big they are. Many times it's like, yes, I don't like dogs, but when my kids are telling me and they're doing good in school, so I promise them I'm getting a dog now. But then maybe they're 3 years old and 5 years old, and I say yes, even though having dogs with children, that's another statistics, it's been proven that it helps them with responsibility, a sense of responsibility and compassion. But you have to understand, a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old, they're only going to be responsible according to their age. So the parents or the mom is going to end up doing a lot of the hard work. So a lot of those cases are the ones that end up being frustrated and then end up surrendering the dog and back in the shelter because it's too much maybe for the household, for the mom. And I always encourage, maybe when they're about 10 years old, it's a good age to get a dog. And then another thing too is my budget, my finances. Again, if you have a dog, and again, I get, call and contacted by a lot of people like, my dog is not doing well, but I don't have the resources maybe to go to the veterinarian and go through the treatment. So there are a lot of clinics in town that they have assistance, but it's basically with the basic like spay and neutering, vaccinations.
Yeah.
But if you have to go with like heartworm disease or maybe different diagnoses, yes, you have to spend some money, and it would be sad to maybe have to put the animal down because of resources. So that's, I'm not saying you need to have a lot of money, but those are things that you need to plan and
consider.
Exactly. And last but not least, a dog and a cat just count around easily 12 years or to 18 years of your life. So that comes with big responsibilities. And one of the issues, again, is because of those frustrated relationships that then the cities end up with having a lot of stray animals or animals in the shelter because they don't know. And I always say this tagline: when you adopt an animal, it doesn't come with a manual. Like when you buy a TV or appliance that you read your manual and the troubleshoot and you know what to do. Guess what? It doesn't come with a manual. Your puppies are very cute, but they're a handful.
They are.
And it's, as we were talking before, we know it's mostly the humans that we have to know how to do this training and how to set discipline and some rules in the house, all based on a positive reinforcement. And when I say positive reinforcement, is a way of emphasizing the positive, not the negative behavior that the dog is doing, and also teaching your dog out of respect and trust to behave, not out of fear. The old school that you get to teach your dog with those chalk colors and out of fear. Yes, you will get maybe the dog to do what you want, but guess what? It's out of fear. It's not out of trust.
Right.
And those things will turn, with some breeds, it could turn against you later in life when your dog is an adult.
Yeah.
So this is why the T-touch and the positive reinforcement and the positive relations that I have, that is, get to be your dog, to trust you, to be your best friend, and have those boundaries, those rules, so that you have this positive, now POS, positive relation and harmonious relation in your life. Yes.
So let's go back a little bit. I just want to kind of contextualize. That was a lot of information. So I want to help the audience understand. You created a business, and you're a consultant for when people have pets and they have challenges and they don't understand what the dog's issues are or the problems are. You're like a liaison who can help communicate from the dog to the owner what needs to happen, because you have studied, you've been trained, you have a longevity of years of, in your 50 something years, you've had 17 dogs. You understand dogs. So you are this ambassador and or liaison as a consultant for people who have dog issues. I will say that what we were also expressing is that, preparedness, that's what the conversation was in the beginning, is just be prepared when you start thinking about, you might want to get a dog. You can work with Marta on like a Zoom call and determine whether or not you actually are ready, and or what do you need? Marta is the manual that doesn't come with dog ownership. So that's why she created Positive Relations. But what I want us to talk about now is some of those scenarios where people can hear what we're talking about and understand, like, oh, I have a neighbor who was challenged by that. So why don't you tell the story of the client story about the sunroom, so they understand some
Yes,
scenarios.
As you were saying, there's easy ways to start on the right track. Nowadays with technology, you could do that through Zoom on internet first, before even getting a dog, to see, is it the right match? Again, talking about breed, your lifestyle, your space, also where is it that you're living, and your children, your family, etc. But once you get a dog, yes, it's how to get with the right start there. And I'm making a pause here. You could train dogs at any age, but it's specific during the first 16 weeks. That's when it's the most crucial time for puppies. They get to be socialized. They have to be introduced to a lot of different scenarios. So don't lose that precious opportunity once you have the puppy to do these things during the first 16 weeks. Cases, and many times, again, like we get to see things, and I get to see things from the outside. And yes, it does take some training and experience and studying. I have this client, I remember she brought me to her house. It was some years ago, because she had problems with her schnauzer. She has a sunroom, and she didn't know what was going on because the schnauzer was going crazy and was bumping into her door going out to the backyard in this
banging
sunroom, banging into the door. And yes, she knew that it was when she was seeing squirrels outside in the backyard. And it was many other different things. And I was like, you just have to. And every time I have a consultation, I have an intake form, not only about the dog or the dogs, but also the house environment and the routines that they have. So here I am talking with her, and exactly the same thing happened. This little dog was banging on the door. And the pet parent, the lady, what she was just doing, she was just running out in that moment. She was just running out and opening the door. So in a way, she was doing it because she wanted to prevent her to get harmed. But guess what she was doing? She was reinforcing the negative behavior. She was allowing that. And again, reinforcing the dog to keep doing that. And the dog was getting away with her behavior. So I said, what you're doing, even though it's well intended, but you are reinforcing that bad behavior. What you want to do is stop and show the dog what is it that you want to do at that moment when she see the squirrels outside in the backyard. So you have, and this is the basic with a lot of the behaviors, you have to show the dog what is it that you want her to do. So at that moment, what we did is a lot of exercise, just to pause. Sometimes depending on the dog, a clicker training is very good, or a training with, if they know how to sit, how to stay still for a moment. So when the dog did that, a few exercises and a few times, and that was her homework, you have to tell the dog to stop, to sit. And once the dog is still, then you can open the door to the backyard. And it was so simple. And then she got it like, oh, wow, this is very simple. Yeah. So this is one of the examples that is.
It's kind of like just getting another perspective.
It is another perspective. And there's another real quick that happens a lot. This was actually a virtual Zoom consultation during the pandemic. She was getting very concerned because every time she was leaving the house, this is a mom with an 8-year-old and a rescue dog. She was having separation anxiety, but she didn't know it was separation anxiety. She was coming home and the house was semi-destroyed. It was messy everywhere. So what she did to prevent that, when she was putting the dog then on a crate, we made it worse. And when she was coming home, she had pooped everywhere in the crate. So it made it even worse. So again, we went over the what are your routines, what are your habits. Basically, again, out of love for our dogs, she was having what is called a Velcro dog. The dog was with her everywhere. She was following her everywhere she was going in a townhouse. She was going to the kitchen, to the bathroom, taking a shower. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like even now with our dogs, that maybe they're seniors or not, once they're adults. But when you have a puppy and is rescued, you have to teach them some boundaries. So I told her, I said, just little by little, tell your dog and make sure get like a baby gate for a few moments. You go to the kitchen and let the dog in a different room, or you go to the bathroom and then leave the dog in a different room. So the dog gets used to be by herself. It's a female by herself without mom. Just do little moments at a time.
And that she'll be okay. She learns.
Exactly.
Learns that she'll be okay.
She got it. And I said, it's the same as with children. Children have to be independent. If you go somewhere, you want to have your children play with other children and always be with mom. So she started doing that. And she said, yes, now she's by herself. She's comfortable to be in the living and I'm in the kitchen. And then the second step exercise is like with separation anxiety is just leave your house. Don't leave it in the crate. Just leave your house for 3 minutes and then come
short
back
periods of
5
time.
minutes, and don't make it a big deal when you come home. It's not like, oh, poor me, I've been by myself. And then the third thing that I suggested, it was there are a few gadgets that you can do natural to help calm with anxiety, like homeopathy or remedy rescues and some things that you can do. And believe me, even music to calm the dog. But it all came down from her allowing the dog to give her some space. we don't think about that, but they need space and they need to develop that sense of independence and self esteem, so to say.
Yeah.
Self-assured.
So speaking of that, I want you to tell the audience more about the different services that you provide, because my dog's in the other room crying to go out and I need to go let her out. So go ahead and tell them about the CPR classes and all the things you offer. Okay.
Okay. And this is a perfect example that, again, when we have our dogs at home. So things that we have, services in the positive relation. I've been very drawn to education and doing classes. Besides the personal one-on-one consultation, I like to have seminars and classes where I can tell people and I can teach them visually all of the things about dogs. I do a series of classes that I have actually been doing for some years, sometimes with the Scouts, with the Girl Scouts, how they learn the badges, is for children to be safe around dogs, teach children about manners, behaviors, and we go over the 5 senses. And actually, this is not only for children in a way. A lot of these things, even though I always have dogs in my life, I didn't know. So we go over something that is called calming signals. It's a term that it was introduced by a renowned author and speaker, dog trainer from Norway. So we go over the calming signals. Those are signals that the dogs do. Is their own way of communicating if they have stressed, if they are relaxed, or if they're tense, or if they are fearful, which is to watch for. We humans have that. For example, if you're crossing your arms or your legs, or let's say you go into an elevator with a group of people and everybody starts looking around or to the sides, those are called calming signals. Dogs have the same way of communicating when they're still licking a lot or blinking or yawning. It's not necessarily saying that they're tired. It's just ways to cope with the environment. So I teach that a lot in the classes. Again, there are a lot of programs in schools to safety, because we see, unfortunately, a lot of bites from dogs that are household dogs or friends' dogs to children, and it's usually it's not who's at fault or not, but it's all about education and
right,
just knowing some of
knowledge.
those, learning some of those signals. So those are some of the classes that I love to teach to different audiences. And recently, I also received a certification. I'm an instructor for pet first aid and CPR. This is still a new area, and a lot of people, though pet parents, they say, "Oh, I didn't know such a thing exists."
Yeah.
Same way that for humans, we get trained in what to do in an emergency situation. Is the same thing with animals, with our pets, and even more, because if something happens, we can't call 911 for our pets. We have to be the first responder. What happens if your dog starts choking on something that you're noticing that he or she just ate, or maybe got some, poison plants on the backyard or out of your garage, antifreeze, for example, that is very poisonous, or he got bitten by a bee or a snake bite, or even if it's, simple accidents at home, that yes, those things happen. So for us to be able to recognize first and assess the situation, just give us some time and chances, first of all, that your dog doesn't get severely injured, or gives you some time and more chances for your dog to survive before you get to the veterinarian, because you are able to assess the situation and you know how to act. A lot of these things sometimes even happen on weekends or nights when our veterinarian offices are closed, and maybe yes, there's some 800 numbers that we can call or not, but if we know what to do with, for example, peroxide, if they got into some toxic element, so that can literally save your dog's life.
What, peroxide?
Yes, it's there's a dosage dependent on the body weight or your dog or cat.
How do you feed your dog hydrogen peroxide?
It's a hydrogen peroxide 3%, the one that we usually have on our first aid kit.
How do you feed it to them?
Just easily. And actually, I had to do it with one of my dogs many years ago. The fastest way you can, if you have, for example, a syringe at home, of course, without the needle, or if you have a dropper, or if you have even a teaspoon, a little spoon. One of talking about real scenarios, many years ago with Serafina, I think you met that dog. That was the one at the wedding. Was living in a house that, unfortunately, sometimes we have rodents in the backyard running around. We got some raticide, something to control the rodents, to kill them. And even the guy who sold that said, no worries, because you're going to put that on the rooftop and in the attic, so it won't be reachable to your dogs. Although that scent and the smell is very appealing to animals, including dogs. But at that time, I didn't know any better. So we put it out in the attic and on the roof. And the first thing I did in the morning when I woke up, I let my dogs out. So I let my dog out. And then I see her on her mouth with a little packet of that rat poison. Sure enough, because maybe the rats during the night, they got it and they drop it in the backyard. I panicked, and I think it was about 8 a.m. in the morning. The veterinarian office, it was just opening, and I said, what happened? And they said, how much they knew how much, it's her weight. Just give her like a teaspoon and a half of hydrogen peroxide. She's going to vomit within less than 2 minutes. And then bring her to the veterinarian, because that's highly toxic and she can die out of internal bleeding. So I did that. And sure enough, it was like a teaspoon and a half, a minute and a half, she was vomiting. And then I took her to the vet, and she was there all day. They did a lot of cleansing and IVs and et cetera. And she lived to be 18 years old.
Right. So you were an automatic first responder before you took the class.
Yeah. And
you saved her life.
About 2.5 months. And this is another story with one of my beloved dogs. He didn't have any symptoms as far as the blood work. All the normal ranges were fine. But one afternoon, I noticed something was really wrong. You know how sometimes you see your dog is acting up, but you don't know how serious it is because, again, they don't talk. So I said, thank you, God, that I took this training because of the vital signs. I took the vital signs, and I knew right away it was really, really serious. I called my husband, and within an hour, we were at the emergency room, and it was very... it was terminal. There was nothing we could do. It was an internal bleeding. It's something that a lot of the shepherds have, hemangiosarcoma. But the fact that I was able to recognize that he was, because of his vital signs, he was really in distress. At least I was able to take him to the veterinarian. By the way, I'm going to talk about, vitals in an upcoming festival this weekend. We know vitals is basically the temperature, the heart rate, the breathing rate, but also the gums and what is called CRT, capillary refill time in the gums, that you can tell how they're doing. Yes. To see how quick their circulation and is refilling the time. That's a way of saying internally how the dog is doing. And of course, the temperature and the breathing rate and the gum color also can tell us how they're doing.
And their eyes, I bet there's something related to their
eyes too.
Yeah.
So there again, this is something I'm now more focusing on. We're talking about the CPR and the first aid that every pet parent, we're talking about statistics, we should be able to get this knowledge, because again, it can literally save our pets' lives or help us rush to the veterinarian, and at least give us the peace of mind to know how to act. These classes, a lot of my consultations are virtual via Zoom, but the pet CPR, for the moment, I'm doing it in presence. There's something about the brain. There are a lot of classes online, but we know that you learn when you do things with
In
your
person.
brain. So the fact that you start doing the 30 compressions and you start doing bleeding protocols and choking and all that. We have a lot of demo dogs that we do that in the class. So when the emergency comes, at least you were able to memorize and bring some of that to mind. It's like pretty much the human training, that we get to do a lot of the same protocols over and over again. So we get to memorize that if we ever have to use it.
Yeah, I could really see that could be beneficial to like a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout troop, to learn pet CPR and pet first responding, so that, they could know when their pets were in distress. So in wrapping up, we're almost coming up on an hour. So I want to, you just reiterated what I was going to bring up, which is most of all the services that you can provide at Positive Relations can be done through Zoom, which means, since this podcast is global, anywhere in the world, as long as you all get on the same time schedule, then y'all can get on an online Zoom call and have a consultation. So that's just something I want to put out there, because somebody might be thinking you're in the central United States, but they're in Europe. And as long as y'all can find a time that works for both of y'all, you're available for consultation. So I highly recommend, if anyone knows of a friend, family member, neighbor who's having trouble with their dog, it's a good idea before you just go surrender it, which, by the way, I just want to mention, that's what Marta's really goal is as a person and with her business. She's trying to eliminate and decrease quantities of surrendering, and also just, poor relationships with animals and their owners, whether they're children or pet owners, because it's supposed to be a positive experience. And in some cases, people don't understand what their dogs need. And so then they just give it up. And then it becomes she's trying to also eliminate euthanizations. So that's typically what's happening. I will just mention, we skipped this part, that you had a statistic about in the larger cities, they're having a challenge with abandonment of dogs. People just drop their dogs off at a park and leave them because they're embarrassed or like the shelters, right? They're overcrowded.
The abandonment is a big issue in the big cities, not only dropping them off at a park, but sadly, leaving them, if they're moving, they're leaving them on their place, on their apartment,
the house where they live, and then they just drive away.
And again, it all comes to education, and so that we avoid frustration. And for those, first of all, that have to abandon your pet because of financial resources, there are a lot of resources in most of these big cities, because this is global, worldwide, this awareness that yes, pets are part of our family. So they're usually resources that people sometimes don't know, at least for the basic even now during the pandemic, there are a lot of food banks that you can drive through.
Right. That's what you mean. Not monetary, but actual resources of food or water.
Exactly. Yes. Or basic veterinarian care, as spay, neutering, shots, etc. But then as far as the behavior, it's just like reach out, because mostly, again, there's nothing more for a dog and even a cat, although they have different personalities, is to be praised by their pet parents, to have this harmonious relationship. A dog is super happy every time you tell them, yeah, good dog, you're good and you're doing well. I mean, that's what they most want, versus, telling them, bad dog, you're not going to do anything but just say that, or
you're not going to get anywhere when you call yeah. And we were talking about that. We both believe that words have vibrational energy. So when you say bad dog, that has a negative vibrational energy, and dogs are very energetic sensing beings, right? Emotional beings.
Yes.
They pick up on emotion. And so good dog is a different vibrational energy than a bad dog comment. And so it's really important not to tell your dog derogatory negative words, because that creates a negative energy in the dog and the relationship between you and.
Exactly. And then when you have, a big family, this is, again, a different scenario, but all the dynamics of how functional, I guess, your family is, with children running around, if there's always argument in the house and a lot of discomfort, the dogs, there's literally sponges. They pick up on that energy. So, of course, I'm not there to fix the family problems, but at least make them aware that this is influencing your dog's behavior. And then everybody has different sets of rules with their dogs. So consistency, it's really important. Also, when we talk about the training, one more thing that I didn't mention also, as far as what I'm doing in positive relations, it's we said, we talked about puppyhood and adult dogs, but also senior dogs and end of life. And when they leave, this is something that myself, as well as friends, one of the hardest things, this is also by studies proven, is when you lose your pet companion. And many times people feel lonely. They're by themselves because they don't want to be judged by society when they lose their animal. Oh, it was just an animal, you can get another one. So they don't have the chance to grieve and express that sense of real loss. So I have the opportunity to support support groups, or do a celebration of life. Still, the loss is real, but just support in a very sacred way, like, hey, we understand you, we know what it is, and it's okay to grieve, it's okay to feel bad for that loss. And same way as with humans, let's celebrate the life, because if we are grieving and in pain, it's because we have love and we have received love. And I truly believe that we are so blessed to have these animals in our lives for some short years, but this is truly God's gift. So if we even change that perspective in the midst of our grief, that help us, like, we are grieving because we love and we receive love.
Yeah. So in wrapping up, I wanted to ask you briefly, just share with the audience, how does it feel to be able to do this work that you do, where you're helping pets and people at the same time? How does it make you feel?
Well, after many years, I am more convinced that this is my call and my passion. It just,
your purpose.
If I want to put words on it, it's just a sense of purpose. And then realizing that you have to go for what you love doing. Life is too short and things can always change in seconds. So just go with your calling and what you feel doing. And if it's about helping, in this case, helping animals, helping families, helping people, it is, as St. Francis said, in giving that we receive. And it has nothing to do with a status or necessarily, a financial status or so. It's just truly helping out people and their animals. And as we're talking in a podcast that is about oneness, God created all creatures in nature and creatures. We see God and we find God. So we need to have this positive relation out of respect, understanding, and love. And it's not just in this case for my doggy or my cat, but it's honoring life, honoring our creator, whatever ways or names you have for it, because we are all one.
Yeah. And I would say, like, a lot of people don't make the connection, but the animals of our earth help to make the earth that we all enjoy. So, for instance, the importance of bees. Without bees, we don't have pollination, which means we don't have our plants growing our vegetables, and human beings could not exist without bees. So, and the plants. So it's just an important respect and show compassion to every living thing, all things, not maybe not even just the living ones, but all things. So
all things, but it's just that. And, all the main, major spiritual practices say that you need to have compassion and respect all living beings, all sentient beings. And we are much better than we were years ago, but we still have a lot to do. But everything starts with you, with our own household.
Right. And I like to say that in my podcast. I like to say that when we heal ourselves, that's in my household, we heal the world. So compassion starts with you and me. We're the ones to make the difference. Exactly. And if you see something, say something, and, what's be the change you wish to see in the world. And actually, I want to just mention this because I know this is what you would care about, but, we want to inspire through this episode. We'd like to inspire those who feel a calling to help volunteer at rescue organizations or any kind of event that helps animals. They're always looking for support. Even if you can just foster a pet to get it out of the cage at a rescue site, that is a contribution that you can make. And it's a temporary one. Like, as a foster, you won't necessarily be taking an 18-year commitment. You're just able to foster, and it's a contribution that you can make to the world. If that's something you could see as your contribution to humanity, go foster a dog. Like what was that? The Betty White. Did you watch the Oscars where they honored Betty White and her? They asked everybody to go adopt a dog in honor of Betty White or something.
She was a big animal advocate, animal lover. Yes, I love her very dearly. But even fostering, a lot of the shelters, that's what they want. Or there are a lot of small rescue groups that they are all foster based. And the fosters, you get to be trained. It's not meant that you adopt every animal that you foster, because after the third one, maybe you're done. No, it's just fostering and helping that animal, reach a goal, and then
till they find someone, they find a adopted. Match.
Exactly. Also, there are different shelters that sometimes they have weekend programs that you can go and give the dogs a break, and you can take them out to a park if you like running or exercise, especially the big dogs. So it's a fun thing to do. If you like going outdoors, maybe go to your local shelter and ask, how can I help you? And again, this is something that truly you will receive even more than what you give by helping out your community, because it's not just the animals, you're helping your community. There are a lot of problems that come, and actually it's costly when a community has a lot of stray animals. That's not good.
Yeah.
So,
And they
yes.
say when people are sad and depressed, which a lot of people, because of COVID, found a new level of mental health they never experienced before.
Yeah. And before, when we talked about the benefits of having a pet, we didn't even go into therapy dogs, PTSD and
Service dogs.
Service dogs, that is huge.
Companions.
Therapy, companion, all kinds of PTSD. Even there are dogs that are being trained to detect different things in your body. So it's amazing, what, again, man's best friend do for us.
It is amazing. So I want to so this is my opportunity to do mirror reflections. Oh, first of all, what are your Instagrams and your website and all that? Tell everybody how they can find you and connect with you.
Yes. Thank you again. Positive, like the paw of an animal, PAWSITIVE, positiverelations.com. That's my website. And you can find me with the same name on Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, positiverelations.com.
Okay, great. So this is your opportunity to sit back, Marta, and receive my mirror reflections. So any of you have ever listened to the very end of my episodes, I like to take an opportunity to just honor the guests that I have. And it's a lot easier when I actually have, 14 years behind me of relationship with you to tell the world. I'm going to get emotional. Tell the world what an amazing human being that you are, and how much, when you're able to live in your purpose like you are working on right now, how you're just such a contribution to those who get a chance to know you and that get to work with you, and you're full of knowledge and information, and you love sharing it and letting other people be educated. I think at the true core of you, you like being a teacher. You like sharing information, and you're good at it. And you help people because of that. And the reason I thought of Marta for the episode is just because one of my questions that I ask when I'm thinking about a guest is, are they bringing a higher vibe to the people that they meet or the people that they interact with or the service that they provide? And when I think about Marta bringing positive relations between pets and their pet owners, that just increases the vibration of humanity, because we know what the positive experience is for people who become dog owners. And so if Marta can help create more pets being connected with their, matched pet owner, it's just going to make the world a better place, isn't it, Marta?
It is. It literally raises the vibration.
It does. And you're doing that. And I'm so grateful that I don't really know a lot of people who are doing what you're doing, especially on a global level where now Zoom has no boundaries. The only boundary you have is if you don't have internet. If you're in a remote island and you don't have internet, that might be the only way you're not going to be able to work with Marta.
Or I could go to the island. That'll be a good excuse for me to get away to the island.
You're open. Yes, of course they need to pay for travel expenses.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So anyway, you're just a light in the world. I'm so lucky to call you friend. And I just love what you're doing, what you're up to, and how you're trying to leave your mark on the world and the planet in this time, in your lifetime, in this particular lifetime, and at this time in the present moment. So thank you for your service and your contribution to making our world a better place. And I love you, and I appreciate you, so much.
Thank you. I love you too, as well as my dear Joy. And it's a blessing to have you in my life too. And thank you for what you're doing to creating this space to talk about oneness, to raise the vibration, and at the end, make the world a more compassionate place coming out of oneness and respect and love. So thank you also for what you're doing and for having me on your show.
Yes. Well, we may have to find topics that you'll have to come back and talk about with me.
Anytime. Please give kisses to Joy.
I will. I need to take care of her right now. So anyway, thank you so much for your time today. And I will see you soon.
Yes.
Okay. Bye-bye. We've reached the end of this episode. If you'd like to continue with this inspirational journey, be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss out. If you are a self-proclaimed oneness junkie, get yourself a t-shirt and spread the message of oneness in your community. And finally, if you have a story to share or know someone that should be a guest on this podcast, contact us at onenessjunkie.com. See you next time. And remember, when we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Compassion starts with you and me.